I'm cleaning my 75 caliber smooth bore brown bass musket as if my life depended upon it. A soldier's life depends upon his weapons. The violent American Revolution and weapons go together, as they have since ancient times, especially the times of King David. Hello, fellow students and staff. I'm Dan Naylor speaking to you from Canada. We're experiencing summer temperatures of some 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm discussing Chapter 4 of James Byrd's Sacred Scriptures, Sacred War, the Bible and the American Revolution. Byrd focuses his chapter on David, whom he calls a revolutionary figure. Byrd is a systematic author and does not neglect other contemporary kings, such as my favorites, Saul and Rehoboam. He also includes the later rebellions against David's rule, which are thoroughly apropos and of course called American Revolution, I suppose. He provides context to David's revolutionary rise and reign over the nation. Byrd speaks of David as pious and the sweet psalmist and a man after God's own heart. I could end the discussion here, but David is not that one-dimensional. The subject of David in the Bible quickly becomes complex. Byrd goes into significant depth about David, the gutsy, youthful opponent of giant Goliath, comparing Goliath to the bullying British redcoats. David often engaged in warfare, by its nature terrible. There is an expertise to killing that distinguished good soldiers from the rest. David was a master of the art of warfare because God had instructed him in it. All these are quotes from Byrd. Mentioned is Psalm 144 verse 1, "Blessed be the Lord my strength, which teaches my hands to war and my fingers to fight." Bunker poignantly reminds us in his tome, Empire on the Edge, that Christianity is complicated and often full of contradictions. As with the great debate about free will and predestination, we're not going to solve this chestnut in the next 5 minutes. I must note, however, that Byrd's episode on David is quite balanced. He surveyed 500 wartime sources, and the sources contain 17,000 biblical citations. I also enjoyed the fact that Byrd mentioned both British and continental forces, citing a chaplain in England encouraging the martial spirit of British forces about to leave for a campaign in America. He also mentions General Richard Montgomery's forces about to march to their defeat in Canada. At the risk of being impolite, I felt certain passages written by chaplains had the distinct tone of war propaganda. We can espouse the ideas of Mercy Otis Warren in the early development of the historiography of the American Revolutionary War. She preferred to explain revolutionary victory in terms of American virtue, not American military might. We can indulge in hagiography, as did Mason Locke Weems in his superb interpretation of George Washington as a saint. Somewhat outside the course material, one can also ponder Quaker philosophy, where the Quakers refused to pay war taxes, despite the fact that Pennsylvania experienced more border conflicts than any other colony. Many prefer to remember a singing, praying David over a more balanced David, who was exceptionally skilled in violence and in a national level management of violence. A capable historian includes all aspects in an effective analysis. But when involved in violent rebellion, the critical factor is the use of crude weapons, which I will demonstrate momentarily, but I will mention very quickly that in my bibliography you will find Nick Bunker's and Empire on the Edge, James P. Byrd's Sacred Scripture, Sacred War, Sylvia Neely's Mason Locke Weems' Life of George Washington, Patrick Sparrow's Frontier Country, and Alan Taylor's American Colonies. Getting back to weapons.
Fix bayonet. Ready. Aim. Fire.